Thank you, everybody, for joining me and the University of Houston Graphic Design seniors. My name is Adrienne O'Donnell. I work at the Printing Museum as the Education's Program Manager. And today we have Joshua and his class joining us. My virtual background behind me is the Printing Museum lobby. The Printing Museum currently has up, it's the very last week of it, the Get Out the Vote, Empowering the Women's Vote, which is honoring the centennial of women's suffrage, women's right to vote. And so earlier in the year, in August, we had the posters put up on display, and they are currently on display up through this week. So this is the very last week to see them. If you haven't yet, we encourage you to go see those posters in the flesh, and they are also online. The Printing Museum is open Thursday through Saturdays from noon to 4 p.m. And I would like to hand it off to Joshua to tell you more about this exhibit that his students have put together as well.
Thank you so much, Adrienne, and thank you for hosting this event and hosting the students, and thanks to everyone for coming. I am Joshua Unikel, Assistant Professor of Graphic Design at the University of Houston. And the project that the students are going to be presenting was for my class, and basically what the project was, it was letting the students take part in an ongoing national campaign by our big national design organization, AIGA, centered around getting out the vote. And they do this, I think, every election. And then this year was sort of a special election, as Adrienne mentioned, because the 100th year anniversary of the women's right to vote. And AIGA did a special campaign around empowering the women and women's vote. And so for the assignment, students, I required them to design their own poster that they would submit to part of this campaign. And then they would build around that what we call a kind of identity system. So a number of different sort of related objects or things that had similarities visually. So they had to design like an I voted sticker, they had to design a social media thumbnail, and then they also had to design, and students, if I'm forgetting something, and then they also had, they could choose their own, a format of their choice based on the content of what they were designing and what fit their identity system. So as you'll see today, there's a huge range from a megaphone to sort of Banksy style spray paint stencils that go onto walls. So you'll see a huge range there. And we sort of had two goals in mind in doing this. One, sort of on the slightly functional side, getting the students to think about identity systems and how to make something that has similarities, but also is, you know, enough differences to keep the different objects interesting, which is part of what we do in our program at the University of Houston. But another big part of what we do is things that are participatory, that look at graphic designers as citizens and as active citizens and as people that are socially engaged in the world that they're designing into. So this lets the students think about what they're designing as an act of participation and thinking about history and doing a fair amount of research about the history, because you know, as we found out through the semester, it is a pretty nuanced history, even within the women's suffrage movement. So that said, that's probably plenty to introduce these folks. So I'm going to introduce our first designer, and she's going to present. She'll share her screen and show you what she's up to and take you through all of her awesome stuff. And then she'll introduce the next person and so on and so forth. So they're going to take over the show, and I'm going to disappear. And then after, they'll present very quickly, and there'll be a number of presenters. And then at the end, we're happy to take questions and just, you know, have pretty informal conversation. You can ask specific students questions. You can ask all the students questions. You could just tell, if you have good jokes, you can just tell us good jokes. Everyone likes jokes. So Yeah, on that note, I'm going to hand it over to Sam Farley, who's one of our senior designers. And yeah, Sam, you have the floor.
Hey y'all, how you guys doing? I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. So my name is Sam Farley. When I heard that we were doing a project about voting, I actually met it with some trepidation because I think that there's a lot more to civic engagement than just voting. So that's what I wanted my poster to be about. This isn't a new idea, so I wanted to draw in references from multiple time periods, like second wave feminists burning their bras in the 1960s, meeting like a 90s punk aesthetic. So I wanted to have references to the past while still creating something distinctly modern. I used a lot of hand-done elements in this poster. The letters that you see saying "We are still fighting" were hand-cut from women's lifestyle magazines. And I took a picture of a friend's bra and I used a layering method on it to give it more texture. And I also hand wrote the vote that's scrawled at the bottom of the poster. The white border that you see around the poster is supposed to reflect barriers that women face while voting and exercising their rights. The paper is burned in some places, it's crumpled, and some elements go outside of the boundaries of it itself. I thought that this lended to the punk spirit of the project. The various pieces of fire shown throughout this piece are from protests all around the world. I still wanted this to be about voting, but I also wanted to make it clear that there's more to a fight than just putting a ballot in a box. And then I created a larger identity system, and I wanted to kind of emphasize my analog process. So as you can see here, my voting social media icon is also hand cut and burned items from women's magazines. And my voting sticker, I included the bra on it, while also I like printed it out, crumpled it up, and then scanned it again. I really just wanted something that was very like grungy and physical. And then finally, I created this matchbook with a matching bra that you can burn with it. I really enjoyed the like photo collage spirit of these pieces, and I hope that you enjoyed my project. The next person that's going to go up is Nicole Dinh.
Hi guys, let me share my screen real quick. You guys can see my screen okay, right? Okay, perfect. So this was one of my favorite projects throughout the semester just because I got to kind of just illustrate and I felt like it was kind of like a free-flowing project for me. But overall, the intention of the piece was to pretty much motivate women to vote and also focus on having them feel included within this action of voting, specifically like women of color, which is kind of shown through the different shades of purple. The color palette was loosely inspired by the suffrage movement. And the overall style of the piece was influenced kind of by like the silkscreen and risograph prints. I really wanted to do something like that, but we didn't have like access to the machine during the time. And you can also see that I tried to like emulate that within the woman's features. And I also thought that highlighting the statistics of women who didn't vote in the last election would also like support the impact of the larger message that's bolder, which is your vote counts. Overall, I kind of like experimented with different ways of how the large type could kind of like lead the reader's eye throughout the lady and into like the smaller sub messages, and eventually came to this composition. And next, the image on the left kind of shows stickers that extended to what could be part of the hand of the lady from the last poster, and also a rose, which is one of the symbols of the women's suffrage movement. And on the right is the social media icon, which is a simpler design, but also cohesive within the style of the identity. And then for my design format of choice, I chose to design 3 sets of face masks. I thought it was really fitting for just the whole era of today and how it's become like such an important part of society. It's pretty much like the first thing you see whenever you see someone, like you don't see their smile anymore. And something like that to me has like lots of potential in communicating a larger message, such as like empowering other women to vote. And that's all I have for my presentation. Thank you guys for listening, and I'll let Jodi-Ann take over.
Okay. Can everyone see this okay?
Perfect.
Okay, good. All right, hi, I'm Jodi-Ann, and this was also one of my favorite projects because of like the freedom that we had to just, hold on, to make it whatever we wanted to. Let me click that down. Okay, so for mine, I wanted to, the goal of mine was to draw in the younger voters, just usually young women who probably wouldn't normally vote. And I tried to pull them in with like bright, vibrant colors and like a grungy aesthetic to just to lure in like the younger voters. And you can see like my use of the bright, vibrant colors, and I use bright colors to like guide the viewer's eye throughout the entire posters. And after that, this was just like a secondary form of type just to pay homage to the fact that women have been voting for 100 years, just to like give the younger voters like a bit of a history lesson. I really wanted to like draw attention to the whole concept of, you know, empowering women to use their voice, which was why I did like cutouts of like women's mouths, like yelling to, you know, basically use your voice because it's your vote. And for, hold on. Okay, so on the left, it's the sticker for the identity. I really wanted it to, again, just like stay within the system of using like bright, vibrant colors. And I didn't want to just stick to like a standard like round or like square sticker, just so that it could like stand out more and just be more eye-catching and just more likely for them to like, again, it's supposed to just encourage them to want to vote. So if they see like a nice sticker, they might be like, oh, I get like a cool sticker at the end. And to the right is the social media icon. It's still using the that aesthetic with the grunginess and the vibrant colors, and you know, just kind of pulling attention to using your voice to empower you to vote. And for the last one, again, just I decided to decorate a megaphone. It's just, again, playing on the whole aspect of using your voice to empower yourself to vote. And yeah, that's it. Oh, I'm sorry. The next presenter is going to be Paris.
Hi guys. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Let me know if it works okay. We in presenter mode here?
There you go. Should be
Okay.
able to. Good.
Awesome. I'm Paris Dowd, and this is my project for the Empowering Women's Right to Vote campaign. On the right there, you can see my poster, which is what I'll get started with. I really wanted to focus on doing some handmade details here, and kind of bringing it back to the past. So my poster focused on using powerful woodblock typography to educate the viewer on the ratification of the 19th Amendment. And the process started actually with my daughter at the Printing Museum. I took the tour and saw all the posters, as you had mentioned a few minutes ago. It was really inspiring for me and for her, even she's such a young age. She sat down and kind of did your creation station and was creating her own poster. And once I got home, I realized that I could use these paper strips to create a powerful visual story that anyone could kind of go through. So I started taking these strips apart and layering them on top of one another until I created a composition that revealed the key years that were focused on for the women's suffrage rights. Then I also began bringing these into a digital aspect where I layered some imagery of the suffragettes on top of it to create this composition. The identity system actually continued throughout all of the work. So on the upper right-hand corner, you can see a social media icon that was used in Instagram to invoke viewers to get out and actually vote in the 2020 elections. And if you did go out and vote, if I knew you, I gave you like a little I voted sticker for the 2020, which was really kind of fun to kind of interact with my friends and family and get them involved in the work that I was creating and something that was going on in all of our everyday lives. And for the function of my choice, I kind of went a little crazy and I brought it way back to these stereoscopes that were used the 90s and before then. And basically what it is it's an interactive way to both view historical images and learn facts about the suffragettes. So simply, this is what you do. And if you can see me, I actually physically have them here, and you can open it up and you take this reel and you slide it into the device and you can physically click through it and use it like binoculars, and you get to see images of the suffragettes fighting for women's rights back in the 1920s and before then. And when you turn it over, it actually has a clever little view hole that allows you to learn facts such as like Black women did not earn the right to vote until 1965. So not only are you viewing these historical images in a fun way, but you're also learning awesome facts about them. So that's my presentation, and next up is Sam Nguyen.
All right, let me try to share my screen. So I'm Sam Nguyen. Can you guys see this?
Now we can. It loaded up.
Okay. So as Joshua had said, in 2020, we celebrated 100 years of women's right to vote. And I wanted to celebrate the suffragettes that got us to this point. So my poster uses historical images of, well, this one is a woman's torso as a backdrop to talk about the history of women's voting rights. The purple and the yellows are the official colors of the National Women's Party, who have fought for women's suffrage since 1916. The pins and the buttons draw a line from the beginning of the women's rights movement to present day, using phrases that women use throughout history. And then the Vote 2020 is a call to action for the 2020 election. And pins and buttons are a common artifact from the suffrage movement. Hundreds of different pins were created by many different women's rights organizations throughout the fight for women's right to vote. So the next one. Oh, okay. Once I created the poster, I was able to develop the I voted sticker and the social media thumbnail to go along with it. Visually, you can see there's the grayscale image of the woman and they're holding signs. And then I added the pinks and the purples on top to kind of match the poster. And then the women's rights movement used a lot of signs to get their messaging out. So I wanted to play off of that and added my own messages to the signs. And for the last part of the system, a classmate actually gave me this idea. It's a denim jacket, which is a closet staple for many women today. The front of the jacket has the buttons, some of the buttons from the poster, and the back of the jacket has the grayscale historic image of a woman wearing pink and purple. Her sash says empowering the women's vote. And then there's the website of the National Organization for Women on the bottom. Anyone wearing the jacket can easily spread the message and take part in activism while looking good. And yeah, that's my identity system. And next up is Karen Riggs. If I can stop sharing. There you go.
Thanks, Sam. And Karen, you're on mute. But we can see your screen now.
Thank you. Sorry about that. I'm Karen Riggs. And let me try to get this to presenter view. There we go. So I have to admit that I wasn't familiar with the history of women's suffrage before this project. Women having the right to vote seemed like a no-brainer. So I was startled when I did my research to learn that the proposed amendment for the women's vote had been before Congress every year for 42 years before it was passed. And I learned that the women who participated in the protests, harsh and sometimes violent treatment from some of those who disagreed with them. And in the images like these that you can see on the left, which are from the National Archives, I was drawn to the carefully made banners, the way the women dressed up for the protests, and also the handwriting on the petitions that they sent to governmental bodies. So in my poster on the right, I used the American suffragette colors of purple, white, and gold. And I also used a little gray to integrate it with the AIGA banner at the bottom, which we were required to include on our posters. So I've admired the work of designers who can take a large block of text and put it together in a block in an interesting way where the words are close together. And I thought this was an opportunity to try that out. And also share what I had learned in my research. So the pandemic conditions this year made it harder to vote in 2020, made it more challenging because you had to be worried about not catching the virus. But I thought that we could be inspired by the suffragettes' determination and the pursuit of the right to vote despite how they were treated. So I carried the typefaces, colors, and the decorative elements from the poster over into the voted sticker, which is in the upper left, the media icon in the middle, and a scarf. So I chose cursive letters for the sticker and the bolder letters for the social media because the sticker would be larger and it would be easier to read and see the details. And then the social media icon was going to be smaller, and so the bolder letters would be easier to read at small size. So you can see a mock-up of the scarf on the upper right, and then the full unfolded scarf design is on the bottom. And I thought that a scarf was appropriate because of the way the suffragettes had dressed up, and a lot of them had worn a sash. So the text on the scarf is more visible when you get up close to it. So from far away, it just looks like a pretty design, but then when you're up close and you can read the words, I thought that was an opportunity for conversation. So the overall vibe of the project is feminine, and then the prettiness can draw people in, but then when you read the words, the meaning of the words is not pretty. So there's a contrast there that I thought was interesting. So understanding what the struggle that went into the passage for the 19th Amendment can help us appreciate the right to vote and not take it for granted. So thank you. And Sara Alwagfi is presenting her poster next.
Sara just said that her internet cut off.
Uh-oh.
We want to come back to her at the end and see if maybe she's back on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Who's after Sara?
Alexandra's next.
Oh, okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm Alexandra. I decided to focus my poster on Latina women and Hispanic women because I am Latina and that's what I kind of relate to. And also I noticed like in history and in school, I was never taught about Latina suffragists, only white ones. And I wanted to recognize the Latina women who did get us where we are. Latinas are more likely to encourage friends and family to vote, so campaigns should target them a lot, and unfortunately, not a lot of them do. And when I was doing my research, I found out the reason Latina women don't vote as much as other women is because they don't feel prepared and confident enough to vote, and they feel like their vote will not change anything. So that's kind of what I wanted to target in my poster. It's in Spanish, but what it says is Latinas que han cambiado el mundo, which means women or Latinas who changed the future. And at the bottom, under Vota, which means vote, it says you can be the next one to change your future. So these are 4 women, one's from Mexico, one's from Puerto Rico, one's Spanish American, and I believe the other one is also Spanish American. And they all contributed to gaining the women's vote in the country and in encouraging Latina voters and increasing the amount of Latina voters in their time. This is my stickers and my third item. I made a sticker for each woman. I actually drew each of these women in charcoal and then I scanned them in to have kind of like a hand-drawn feel to it. So I made a sticker for each woman. I also have a sticker for the other woman on the poster, but I just wanted to show 3 here. And then the bottom 2 would be kind of ones, or I mean, all of them you can put on your shirt after you vote. But the other one on the bottom, it says, I changed the world with my vote. So hopefully Latina women can see that other women did it in the past and they can do it in the future. And then the reason I chose to do a mural for my third item was because, well, it's for 2 reasons. Whenever I go to Mexico, they have like these huge murals all over the place, and whenever I'm in the car, I always look out the window and I always read them, and my family talks about some of the murals that we see. So I thought it could be kind of a conversation starter for people driving past. And also people nowadays really like using murals on social media and Instagram. They take pictures with them and post them. So I thought it'd be a good way to get the word out. So the first one on top, it says, vote, you can change the world. And then the bottom one shows each of the women who's made history and encouraged Latina women voting. And it says, Latinas who have changed the future, you can be the next one. Vote on November 3rd. And so that's my branding or my items. Next up is Garrett. Thank you.
Cool. All right. Let's see. Okay. Hey y'all, I'm Garrett. So the overall idea with the poster and the identity itself is sort of a reference to the illustration of what they call Cupid babies within the suffrage movement in the early 20th century. So images of suffragette babies were sort of used to appeal to the compassionate emotions of non-suffragettes. I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble with my my screen here. There we go. So as I was saying, the images of suffragette babies were used to appeal to the compassionate emotions of the non-suffragettes at the time. And this was also made popular by an artist named Rosie O'Neill. The text on the poster itself is actually directly from some of the posters and picket signs at the time. The word vote and the quality of the baby are the focus of the poster itself and is simplified a bit when it comes to the stickers on the right. So I used bright and contrasting colors, not only to sort of bring attention to the illustrations, but also to sort of add an optimistic appeal to the work. And then using the identity in a larger format was pretty important to me. I think it carries sort of a heavier weight, especially if someone were to sort of see the flag or a baby painted in an urban environment.
So using a combination of Photoshop and urban imagery, I was able to represent what that might look like. So both the flag and the head of the baby. And that's what I've got, so thanks. The next designer is gonna be Tiffany. She's gonna take over.
Okay. One second. Okay, is that working?
Yeah, I can see it now.
Okay. All right, so this is mine. I'm Tiffany. Hi. Okay, so this is my poster and some other pieces of my identity for this project. Yeah, so we obviously were working on this when we were kind of doing everything digitally. Everything was on our computer. We were on computers all day long. And so I was like, I want to get away from, I just want to do something that looks kind of hand done. I was still on a screen, but I didn't want to use Illustrator, to be totally honest. I wanted to do something that kind of just felt really organic and energetic. I just had this image of fire and of something that looks like it could be made physically, like with a printmaking technique, like relief or screen printing. So this is what I came up with. I kind of let these letters kind of direct how everything else came out, just kind of the motion and the energy of the idea of voting. And the idea of this last election, voting was, I mean, I think Harris County broke records. It really, this idea of it kind of spreading like wildfire and people getting very fired up and all the energy around it, really. I just thought it was appropriate. So I chose this color palette that was energetic and it had the pink to kind of add the touch of the feminine and to relate it back to that idea of we're celebrating 100 years of women having the right to vote. So I wanted the lettering to sort of fit in together into this image and in with the lines and kind of with the whole flow of the image. So that's kind of how the poster came about. Yeah, so it just took a while to kind of perfect the shapes and the kind of look that I was going for, and the different layers of color was obviously important. And then this little ballot box, and my social media icon just sort of became, I played with a few different things, but it ended up just being the flames themselves, just because I felt like the palette and the energy would end up being pretty recognizable. And then the sticker would have been sort of a simplified version of kind of the poster, doing something similar with the fire in the ballot box, but then the vote is inside of the ballot. Yeah, and so this could be something that people would get after they voted, or if they participated in something. Like I imagine this campaign being on social media and, you know, being able to use these really recognizable textures and colors. And then my format of choice was a matchbox. Since it was fire, it seemed fitting. This and the texture sort of seemed to fit the sort of like kind of a bit rough kind of feel, rustic feel, something with energy. So I took this matchbox, I made the match heads like pink, and I changed the colors of it. And the side of the strike strip here on the side says vote on it, which I thought was kind of cool. Like the vote part is what kind of lights the spark and everything. And then the back of it would have what the 19th Amendment actually is. So it's sort of like you learn exactly what it says and what the meaning of it is as you're using it, as you think about voting and think about that moment in history. And so it has the date and it has like what the amendment is. And on this side, it's the same kind of design as the sticker. So it kind of pulls it all back into that identity. Yeah. So obviously I'm not saying go set something on fire necessarily, but a fire inside of you, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, so that's mine. And I believe the next person is, where is it? Who's after me? Josiah. Josiah's next. Thanks, guys.
Hello. All right, let me share my screen. Can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Let me go ahead and full screen this. Okay, so go ahead and get started. My name is Josiah Williams. This is my contribution to the Get Out the Vote campaign. Your Voice Matters is a series of designs dedicated to bringing awareness and encouragement to every voter in the 2020 presidential election, as well as to celebrate the 100-year mark of women gaining the right to vote. My goal with this series was to ensure that everyone that were to see it would know that no matter who you are or what background you come from, your contribution and your voice matters greatly. The design choices throughout the system were made to kind of reflect a familiar feeling and to kind of bring back some traditions. So I used a red, white, and blue color palette, as well as incorporating stars and stripes to kind of bring in that familiar feeling. But the colors and graphics were treated in a way that made them feel a little more welcoming and personal. In addition to the colors and handmade graphics, the system makes use of photo collage imagery, as you can see with the women's hands, as well as bold typography to kind of get the message across and tie everything together. I chose to use women's hands, like I said, because we're celebrating 100 years of women voting. So I wanted the message of women using their right to put their vote into the ballot box and make their voice heard. The I voted sticker that's seen up in the top right, as well as the social media icon in the bottom right, also incorporate the use of the bold message that we originally talked about, as well as the handmade graphics to further spread the message and get the word out. So obviously, whenever you go to vote, you get the I voted sticker. So I think that it'd be kind of cool to use this system on a sticker that you could see on someone's shirt, and the social media icon would be something that you post on your social media sites or use for your profile picture and so on and so forth. In addition to the poster, the I voted sticker and the social media icon, I chose to develop a series of craft beer cans and packaging to go along with that to reach out to voters across restaurants, clubs, bars, and so forth. As a personal lover of craft beer myself, I thought it would be really cool and interesting to design some cans that not only use the design system that I previously mentioned, but also serve a purpose in informing voters and people just simply interested in learning more about the election. So each beer can, although I designed it to try to make them look cool and interesting, they serve a specific purpose in that every can has a unique QR code on the back that will link anybody that's using it to information regarding candidates, absentee ballots, and information on how to register to vote in your specific state. And just kind of try to tie it all together along with the system that I used in the poster. And that's all I got for you folks today. Thank you so much for your time. And up next will be Stephanie.
Thank you, Josiah. Can we see my screen?
Yes, you can see it now.
Okay, so hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Leal. I'm gonna start with something a little bit different. I'm gonna share with you guys a video that I created that is still part of my identity system, in which I use my own words and my own voice to tell a story and to talk basically directly to Latina voters. So here we go.
Yo voto por ella, yo voto por mí, porque puedo y porque debo, porque el futuro está en mis manos y también están las tuyas. Así que vota, que tu voz importa. Yo voto. ¿Y tú?
So my goal for this project was to raise the question specifically again to Latina and to even Latinos. My poster here says Yo voto y tú celebrando 100 años, which means I vote and you celebrating 100 years. And I think being a Mexican immigrant myself, I think it was really important for me to reach out to the Hispanic and Latino community and celebrate the right to vote, especially because I know a lot of hardworking Latinos and Latinas who don't have that privilege to do so. So for me to do this project and try to encourage others to get out, raise their voice and vote, and also to like let them know that their voice matters, because I think that's something we don't hear a lot in the Latino community. So that was my goal. And then next we have my sticker and on the left side, which says Yo voto, which means I vote. And I didn't want to do the typical I voted sticker because I wanted to really emphasize the fact that you are a voter. You're a voter today, you're a voter tomorrow, and for the next elections to come. So we can keep it up and keep voting. So make it something that is present, that makes you a voter. And finally, to the right is my Facebook icons, which just wanted to really emphasize the celebration of women's right to vote. And that's all I have for you guys. The next awesome designer is Paloma Bond-Reading. Thank you.
Hello. Hey. Okay. Can y'all see me? Well, she's loading. Can y'all see it now?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So for my poster, for the kind of aesthetic theme I went with, I was really inspired by sewing. I have a lot of really awesome women in my own life that do sewing, quilting, crochet, stuff like that. And I really like it as a symbol of like feminine expression. For my message of my poster, I really wanted to highlight that even though 1920 was such an important moment for voting rights, it was not the only moment for voting rights. And so on the side, I have a lot of years where we got added voting rights. And now that's even still continuing today. And I have the message celebrating 100 years of women's suffrage because who votes matters. Just highlighting that there's a reason that we should fight for these different groups to have access for voting, that everyone should have access to this. For my sticker on the left here, I have a little button to stick with the kind of theme. And then my social media on the right, I kept it really simple and bold since it has to be read at such a small size, but I do have that little fabric texture. And then for my kind of miscellaneous format, I went with a kind of interactive wall. For this, I was really inspired by quilting. I really went all in on that as far as the design of it. And then also the idea that this is a giant wall that could come apart and be put kind of all over the country, and all different women from all different places could write on it, and they could kind of come back together like you have all these different pieces of a whole. And then on it, it talks about, asking women to share what inspires them to vote, what is the thing that they vote for, and invited them to add their piece to the quilt. And yeah, that's all I got. After me, I think, is Jason.
All right, thank you, Paloma. Let's do this. Can y'all see my screen?
Yes.
Right, let me just get to present. Okay, my name is Jason Funes, and this is my poster. So when thinking of the process of my poster, I wanted to incorporate a lot of red, just to make it seem like loud. This is like an important cause, 100 years of women voting. And, typically with posters like this, there is a use of pink. And in my case, I subverted that to emphasize this central figure, posing with her strength, and a heavy emphasis on her shoe. Another one of the main ideas I tried to incorporate was contrasting times, yet putting them together in the same scene. The stills I use in this poster showcase women during the suffrage movement in the 1920s, which is again contrasted with this central figure. And there's an emphasis on the bottom of her shoe, which reads, "We must leave our mark." This is used to urge the audience on to continue to the timeline and respect the stepping stones that it took women to get to this point. And lastly, my poster design was mostly inspired by the grittiness of grunge design, which takes on the rawness of punk and rock, but incorporates urban and industrial imagery, which is, just showcased throughout the entirety of this poster. Not only that, it incorporates various silkscreen techniques, which were inspired by the works of Garrett Hernandez, a popular printmaker here in Houston. And yeah, this is showcased with the elements of uneven lines, layered dirty textures, cutouts, and hand-drawn fonts. Because most of the elements in here I hand drew myself, except for the photographs. Those were used to, be in a collage. And this is my collateral. The stickers incorporate many of the central themes of my poster. This is shown with the heavy use of red, the hand-drawn lettering, and the emphasis on the shoe print, which continues on with the leaving our mark messaging. And that's what you can do. By showing that you voted, you can physically take the sticker and leave it where you see fit, thus actually leaving your mark. And lastly, these custom Converse shoes showcase the same grunge aesthetics shown throughout the designs. The shoe themselves were introduced during the 1920s, which I thought would serve as a perfect connection between the 100 years. And not only that, I wanted to choose a shoe that is affordable to the public eye, because nowadays when thinking of sneakers, they're like, over $100 just to get something, but not in this case. In this case, you can actually just buy this and this humble shoe and take home history with you with some, powerful messaging. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm not sure if Sarah's after me or if this is the actual.
Yeah, I think so. I think Sara is up next. She'll take us home. So last but not least, Sara Alwagfi.
Great. Thank you, guys. Here we are. Okay. So my name is Sara Alwagfi. For my poster, I was seeking to try and step away from a few of the aesthetic qualities, colors that kind of surround around women's voting, because I wanted to kind of really just focus on who those women were and what they said and what their voices, what they were trying to say at the time. So you can see on the left, those are some of my sources of inspiration. The kind of historic posters that they would make and hand done, messages that they would try to portray. And for my poster, I wanted to actually use those messages that were their own and kind of use them in a way that showed a collective nature. So like when voting, I feel like it is an individual, while it is a cumulative kind of job. So it's, it's your community and it's you and it's working together. So when creating this, I wanted to really abstractly show how it takes a team to kind of get things done and how it takes a community. So my phrase was, now it's up to you. And I just wanted that to be I wanted that to pop forward and have that be a really quick catchphrase that kind of brought you in really quickly, while having that really familiar handheld poster quality type matched with a lot of marker kind of felt tip, drawing kind of lines that felt like it was done by hand, and this poster was created as well by someone who was protesting or someone who may have needed to use their voice. And to support my poster, I worked on my registration card, which is the voter registration card. And when I was kind of working on what would be my kind of how I would expand my this kind of brand, I wanted to work on how and what way would be really useful. So I started searching for different tools and different outlets for how to vote. And this was the most confusing one. When I found the actual original one, the original voting card, it's very condensed and small. So I made it bigger. I tried to make it more clear, more hierarchy, more, so it's easy to read and you get through it and it's actually fun to fill out. I changed some of the language in there and made it so that it was easier and more, applicable to kind of the newer generation. And for my social, I created stickers and a profile picture. So for my stickers, I wanted it to be like a miniature poster that had that hand-done quality again, but also had the kind of, the history that still lives within those words. And then for my social post, I just limited the title and I cut it down to Now You, because it comes down to an individual kind of involvement. But yeah, that is it for me today, guys. Thank you so much.
Yay, all. Good job.
Thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Yeah, nicely done, everyone.
So we do have some time left. If there were any questions, if anyone had any, feel free to put them in the chat or unmute yourself and ask away. I loved the diversity of the extra objects that you all made, since online we just have the posters. And so seeing the comprehensive suite of all of your designs come together was really interesting. And I really enjoyed seeing that today.
Yeah, to be able to kind of take that social design and use it in an actual format that works for, the registration card of the shoe or like all the different kinds of outlets. It was really fun to take that social engagement and use it in a literal way. It was really, really great.
Mm-hmm. I put in the chat and for everybody at home too, that you can see all of their posters again up close and whenever you would like at the printingmuseum.org exhibitions, Empower Her. So we will have the posters that they've all designed up online on our website so that you can go back and see them, get another look as well. So I think we might wrap up then if there's no questions. If there's anything else, let's see.
Here's some.
All right, quick question from Lexi. So many people mentioned the hand-drawn elements, the grunge, the printmaking techniques. Was this a coincidence? Was there any group discussions that encouraged that collective through line? Great question, Lexi. Thank you.
I think, a lot of us, especially in the program here at U of H, we sort of over the past few years have been doing a lot of, hand-drawn elements and we've learned a lot of printmaking techniques, but also I think, it shows the strength of Joshua as a professor giving us sort of some guidelines of not to sort of go the same route, we could have all made a simple icon or an animated GIF, but he strongly encouraged that we try and go off the beaten path. And I think that was one of the biggest things that, sort of caused a lot of people to go the hand-drawn route. And also, I think last semester we were online so much and people were sort of itching to get their hands dirty. So all of those things at once, I would say.
I would say also with a campaign that's related to voting, I feel like things that are hand done or things that look like collage or printmaking, printmaking kind of has a history with like social movements as well. So I think that kind of look and that sort of idea, even though we made it digitally, like that idea kind of lends itself well to a project like this. And so I think we didn't all just come together and be like, all right, guys, let's try a printmaking technique. Like we didn't do that. We just kind of, I think a lot of us just ended up going that way because we just were being more free and more expressive. And yeah, there is something very democratic about printmaking also. So I think that's probably why a lot of us chose to go that way.
I think our professor did a really good job of keeping it super open-ended. And a lot of the times we were put into small groups and it kind of just like happened by serendipity that some of us had kind of these same through lines. And I think that it was because Joshua was being, he emphasized like freedom so much in this process, which was really cool and a great change from normal graphic design. So.
Yeah, there was. It maybe is worth highlighting. Sam's right. Sort of normally when we're in person in the before times, we're kind of in a larger group, and they get into small groups, but they can kind of all see what each other is doing. And there was some of that, but we use Microsoft Teams, being online because of COVID, they really are in these smaller groups of like 3 or 4 designers. And so they really see a lot of that group, but they don't see a lot of the whole class. That's kind of the trade-off there. And, so a little bit of coincidence that, one person in this group and another person in that group had kind of some of this hand done feel. Yeah.
So Joshua, will a gallery be set up in the university this spring 2021 to physically come see? Not to put you on the spot.
Yeah, I would love for that to be the case. But I kind of doubt it, especially because I think last time I checked, we're at like a 20+% positivity rate here in Houston, and it's sort of going up. However, you can see, it's not the same as being in person, I'll be the first to say that, but you can see on the Printing Museum's website a digital gallery of the posters. So that, oh yeah, there is a virtual gallery, Rosie. And thank you, Adrienne, for posting that. Also, I'm going to guess that Rosie is somehow related to Sara, especially because she's watching from Kuwait. And so big shout out to,
oh my gosh, oh my Alexa.
You're blowing up, to Rosie. We may have some other relatives of Sara, and I've seen other familiar last names. So I just wanted to give a big shout out and thank you to the parents that have been here. I think maybe Sam Farley had some relatives that were in earlier, or someone did. Anyhow, big shout out and thank you for sort of letting us, take up so much of your kids' lives. Not kids, but they're your kids. They're not kids. And push them and take up their time and inadvertently force them to drink a lot of coffee and energy drinks to stay up all night to do all of our projects. So shout out to you, Rosie, and all the other parents and family members.
Thank you, Anna and Debbie, for commenting.
Thank you all. We've just been blown away and so impressed by all the work that you have done. And we are at the Printing Museum honored to be able to host your exhibit. And we look forward to, again, in-person events as well. So thank you all for joining us virtually today. And with that, everybody enjoy your afternoons. Been a pleasure today. You take care.